Welcome to everybody. I'm Colin Hobson, and what we're going to do is look at QGIS. If you're not familiar with Open Spatial, we produce have a strong focus in the water utilities, sewer, storm, telecom, electrical, and have customers in the US where we've been since 2004, and Australia where we've been since the year 2000. So that's kind of where we're at. And so this is assuming you already know about how our products work. We store all our data in Oracle Spatial, and we use AutoCAD as the editing tool, and that's kind of where QGIS fits in. We also have a web-based tool called Enlighten, but inside of in QGIS, you can connect to any data because the data from Open Spatial is in open source. Yeah, I see a couple more folks have joined us. Welcome, thank you. And so what I'm going to do is just focus on the QGIS piece. If you want to know more about our other products, you're welcome to, contact us or look on the website or whatever, and we'll go from there. But I'm just going to talk a little bit about QGIS because these are sort of more things that are not well known. These highlights are kind of where we're involved. We are involved in the QGIS development. We are OGC members. There is an Open Spatial QGIS document on how to connect QGIS to the Oracle stuff and best practices. I'll be talking about that. We'll look at plugins. There's a bunch of Oracle tools. Open Spatial has actually been involved in sponsoring and testing a bunch of those. I'm going to look a little bit at how to deal with Muncis lineage and display literally time zone changes, timed changes, and display that as a animated layer within QGIS to see who's edited what data. Also look at how you can integrate QGIS to our Enlighten product, so you can set up on a QGIS map to go straight there. And then for our AC/DC products, we also have some interaction there. So let's get started. Really busy slide. We will be posting a recording. But just for those who don't know, if you can just search for QGIS, you'll find it. But there's qgis.org. You'll find the latest versions to download it at qgis.org. There's a ton of documentation and stuff that goes with it. A lot of training available is, etc. You can see all of the latest changes within the, actually, let me go to one of those and I'll pop it over here. So if you look at QGIS website, you'll see there's a whole lot of things about it. Downloading, you can go to discover it and look at applications and learn about it and all of that, and get a handle on the community, etc. Not sure what the line across my screen is, but never mind. And so there's that. The other thing you can look at is for developers. The entire source code of QGIS is available. You can go and contribute. There is obviously a procedure there. You need to be recognized, and they need to see that you're doing good work and all of that. But there's over 2,000 people involved in the development, 20 to 50 core developers, and you can look at sustaining members. Obviously, we're one of those. Let's see if I can open that in a new browser window. And yeah, so if you look, there's a whole, we don't have the wonderful line, but there's a lot of different user groups across the world. There's a lot of customers, sustaining members, and you can get involved in that. You can contribute to it, etc. Within QGIS. So this is the split there. So you can get an idea on that as well. What's probably more interesting, if you look at the analytics, the QGIS user base, people think it's not that large, and you can actually go and look at the number of downloads and track that. If you go and look there, it's pretty detailed. And you can actually get drill into those and look at their information. on the user base and check it out. So, 11 million downloads. You can look at it per day, per month, etc. On the website and go and actually check that out on there on the user base. So you can do it. There's a blog, etc. So, assuming you have some idea of that, inside of that there's the analytics dashboard. And if we look at the last chart on that, it'll give us, I believe, the downloads. Yeah, so this is a feed here. This is the one I was looking for. So here's in the last 30 days, there have been 13 million downloads, opens. It doesn't track your usage or anything like that. It does actually, if you're connected to the web and you open the desktop thing, it will actually ping the opens in the current month. So there've been over 6 million opens, and yesterday, 600,000. So it's pretty crazy, and you can even drill down to which areas is it most used in, and then also look at the cyclical and all of that sort of stuff. So pretty interesting to take a deal with that, and looking at, there's a lot of analytics, so you can look at it, but it's picking up, has been going for many years, and very, solid, comprehensive data set. And so you can look at the different users on each of the versions. And so, a lot of info, background info. These slides, by the way, you don't have to take these URLs down. We'll provide that information. But let's move on then on this side. So Open Spatial and QGIS development. We've been involved. We've actually, there's one thing we sponsored and paid for the development of in QGIS, within Mansus, for example, you can have, complex lines, polylines in AutoCAD, but complex lines that are line segments with arcs and lines. And the QGIS display was just showing the first part of the line, and we actually then sponsored that. So now in QGIS, if you see that, you'll see all the arcs are all there. The other thing is we're involved in putting the schema name. When you open and connect to Oracle, before it would look at every user / schema in the Oracle database that you connected to, and that would be super slow. And so we put in the schema name or username. In here, we sponsored and worked with that, and obviously tested it and all. That means it's just a lot quicker because you can go to your specific schema. So from an Open Spatial perspective, there is a document that we have that's part of our help documentation, and it looks at, actually connecting to QGIS and how you do that, and I can show you that quickly. So if we look at this here, and this is recorded from yesterday's demo, but if we take it, there's the whole point of that. So if I open that PDF, it looks at how do you use the management console in Mansus. This is on QGIS 2.8. So if I zoom down, it just shows you things on, setting it up. So one of the things we recommend is you actually add a user and so this is sort of the chart, and you can look at the details on your own. But create a QGIS user in Oracle, so like QGIS query or whatever, and give them read-only access to it. And then people can go in there and do all manner of things in terms of data display, presentation, etc., without messing up with the data. And I'll talk about what you can and can't do in terms of editing, because technically you can edit the Oracle data. You can edit it straight out of QGIS, but it'll wreak havoc with what you're trying to do in Mansus at the same time. So if we go along in this here, I'm trying to get it to play, so I don't know why it's not playing. There we go. So we can actually go and look at it. You'll see there's like workspaces, and you can set up that. You put in your password and we'll connect and show you that. So I'll actually show you that live right now. And so it's this PDF here, QGIS from PDF. So version 3, and that's not anything there. The other thing on QGIS is there's a lot of plugins, thousands of plugins. And so if you look here, you can see there's 2 we've highlighted. Quick Map Services is one. That allows you to add base maps and basically show Google or Bing or even Esri base maps in the back of QGIS. And then QGIS to web is another one that's very popular, where you can just create down at the bottom here, where you can create export your map straight to open layers, etc. And we'll just let's take a little look at that quickly. So if we go in and open the link to the plugins, there's about plugins here. You'll see there's the, look at that. There's 4.3 million downloads of quick map services, that sort of thing, and then you can find all these different plugins. So if you take a look through here, a lot of different plugins that you can do, and that's kind of one of the benefits is you can get to use all of that straight up, and there's all manner of things involved with that. So on the Oracle side, what's new in QGIS 3.28, and we were involved in this, is in Oracle, I've just showed you can connect, and I'll take you and walk you through this, but you can also now save your QGIS project in the database itself and then open it again. And there's a good reason we want to do that. So let's take a look. We'll open QGIS and we'll go into a new project. But if you look here, you'll see that under the browser, so that's a panel. As you can see your panels, if you go to view panels, you can toggle things on and off, but the browser will show you your data connections and a bunch of other things that you can turn on and off there as a panel. If you go to the Oracle one there, you can literally then just open actual projects stored in the database, and you can then go and click on that and it'll open it. Obviously then you're going to type in the connection password if you didn't save it, which you shouldn't do. But anyways, and so it'll then just going to open the whole setup. And so a project is a collection of the various layers, the various symbology, and all of that you've set up. And so in QGIS, and this is the latest version, which is 3.28, not to be confused, they seem to skip the 3.0 something numbers. So you may have, like I had 3.8, and I would have thought 3.8 is higher than 3.2.8, but actually 3.8 was 3.08 anyway. So here you can see the schema name. That's the piece that we got added in there. And so it'll go in there, and then you can go and look at your connections. You can set up down below to look in the metadata tables and only look for your own user tables. That second checkbox, you kind of want to do that. And then allows the very bottom item there. So there's some parameters you can set up on the connection here that is extended options that were not available previously. So you can go in and check that out. You also then have the ability, let's see, let's just move it along here. I don't know why it's taking so long. So if you go and expand out that project, if I'm looking on the panel down here, you can see these are the Munsis tables in this instance there, and those are in the project, and they're busy loading right now. And so then it's going to pop up and you'll just see a map. So you can also go open from on the top menu instead of the panel, and then also save as or save to Oracle. So that takes that whole config of the setup of the project, right? So let's go back and check. So if we come in here and I open that project, so there's also the DB manager. I'm trying to just find where it was. Yeah, so we go in there. And let this run here. If you go open from Oracle, you can see that. And so from there, if we go down below, there is in QGIS, kind of like the Munsis Management Console, there's a thing called DB Manager. So if you go to the Database Manager and you open DB Manager in QGIS, you'll be able to see the contents of the Oracle database through QGIS. And that's kind of interesting. And I'll talk about the management constants, the management thing. But if you go to the database DB Manager, you'll see there you've got Oracle. And let's go and look then at that same schema Type in the password again. And so this is a city and predominantly doing water, but you'll see there now we've got the Oracle connection, and you can go and look at it here. If we expand that out, you can do things like looking at the contents of a table, and you might do that in something like SQL Developer. Let's see here. So these are the tables within within the DB manager in QGIS, and you can go and do a bunch of stuff there. So if I, for example, go in here, one of the things is I can put a query on a table, so I can have saved queries. So this is sort of like SQL Developer. I can go in and do it, just a query, so any kind of SQL, Oracle SQL query. So if I say, well, what's, and we got to spell that right. So what's the count in the water pipes table, and hit execute, it'll give it to me, and you can then view that. So it's similar to SQL Developer. So just mention that, people don't kind of know that. And so if you're in one environment, that's useful. So let's move along to, you can load this project here. And they're using a specific connection. So I'm just going to a different project in here. We're going to just look at, say, heat maps, for example. So heat map creation is another item that's very useful. In this example, and so a heat map, you can load the vector data and then run the heat map from there. And so we've actually got, you know, a whole lot of different things there that you can use. I'm just going to, oh, sorry, let's get this out of the way. Come on, it's not allowing me to do that, sorry. PowerPoint, and lose my mouse when that thing's playing. Okay, stop you playing. Try that again. Okay, all right. I'm just going to show you a different heat map quickly, because this one is specific to the Australian presentation. Yeah, here we go. So here's the slightly different heat map. So these in QGIS, these are water breaks, so point features, and then you can go and do a heat map. So within QGIS, doing that heat map is kind of a setup thing where you go in and you can go get your the values, and then if you go and if you click on any of these, you'll see information. In this instance, there's a shift distance that's been used here as the value to generate the heat map. And then if you go in and actually set that up, you'll see on the menu, it'll be view panels. And one of the things you can do is the processing toolbox. And that'll pop up this guy on the right. And so as you run through that on the right here, one of the things you can do, just type in interpolate. Okay, well, this is just doing a tool thing. So this is an interpolation on that. And what we were doing there is just turning those lines into points. So that's a sort of tool you can use. And then you've got the line, short little line arrow lines there. And we can go then on the properties of the markers and choose heat map. And what the heat map's going to do is actually create a, and you'll just use a color ramp. You can put a radius around the points, and the heat map's going to look within that radius. If there are other points within a certain distance, then it's going to code them. The more points within a close proximity based on any attribute is like this. You can actually get the heat map there as well. You can also, and I'll show you this in a minute here. So this is interpolated points, and I'll pause right there. And literally it's just showing a high density of points in close proximity. So that's essentially a heat map. and actually show you a slightly different one. Here's a project areas, and before we even get a heat map is really an interpretation of the data by doing a nearest neighbor analysis or similar. Also in QGIS, so these are actually polygons in Muncis for a particular set of project areas. If you double click on any of these layers that you have, so this would be the project, you could save this whole setup in Oracle. And what we've done here is we've gone and set the symbol to be a color ramp, and it's graduated right at the top here. So normally there'll be a single symbol. Categorized will be where you actually distinct values in the data. Graduated would be typically for the range of values. And so here we're actually coloring those polygons according to a column called priority score here, and I'll come back to that in a minute. We're just coloring them up according to the value in that and giving it a legend. So we've rounded it off. And so that's what you're seeing up here, these different colors, and it's been set up there. The interesting part in this one, and this is sort of where QGIS really helps, because we're visualizing data, we're applying themes. It's pretty easy, it's nice, and you know, there's a whole lot of depth to what you can do. And in this instance, let me say, okay, what I've got in here is these are the polygons. They're from Muncis. The actual data that we're using to theme are from a spreadsheet. So on this, now let's make this a little wider. So this guy here, if I open this, you'll see it's actually a spreadsheet in XLSX. And if I go and right mouse button it, I can say, well, let's open the attribute table. So this is the attribute table from a spreadsheet. And what we're actually mapping here is each of these areas has a whole lot of underground utilities, and the relative percentage is basically a relative percentage of what is missing compared to what can be filled in. In fact, I probably have that open. Yeah, let's take a look. Data stats, yeah. Yeah, so this is essentially each of those regions, a pretty intense bit of data. These are more Muncis tables. And what we've looked at is in each thing. So say, for example, there are sewer nodes here. We can look at a particular field for the sewer nodes, like say depth, for example. And if you don't have depth, then you'll know, okay, in area number 1, there was a potential of 900 nodes and 431 of them do not have depth, okay? And so, and this map then is taking all of these concatenated together with a total up top, and literally you're looking at the total of nodes within that and that area, and that's for by zone. So grouped it. So there's a lot of analysis being done in this like spreadsheet, and that's been rendered and simplified into by group. So you could look at it, you could visualize it like this. So this is the actual one that we're using here, and it's all I've pulled in is the 3 columns: the score and the relative and the area. So you can see area 14 has like by far and away the highest missing and the most. So just because it's missing, you know, if it only has 10 and it's missing 8, then it's, you know, 80% missing. But if the other one has 20,000, there's a lot more data points to collect. So this was actually used as to where should data capture be prioritized, and the high red ones were, and this purple one were the main ones, to kind of say, well, you know, not only do we have a lot of data, but inside of that area, there's a lot of the data is missing for that many data. And so just to show you then, you know, QGIS allows you to do that. And then you can go to, you know, the heat map thing. So this is areas. Let's look at points. So I'll just jump to this guy, back to this. So these points are from Muncis tables, and we run a heat map. So it literally is looking at a priority of how many dots there are within a distance. So you actually specify the distance. What it creates is a new layer. It's a raster layer with colored up by color ramps, looking by doing that interpolation analysis and analytics. And so that's what heat maps are about, and you can do it. We've done it all over the place. Things like street lights and dark and light areas within cities, and looking at those to crime or graffiti or stuff like that have been other examples that I can think of off the top of my head. So there's that one. Let's go back then to, so this is a heat map here. of what they call shift vectors, literally where the cadastra have been moved, and you can look then at each one. So this particular shift, I can let it run a little bit more. Let's just run it through. So these are shift vectors. The cadastra had been adjusted to match, to being improved. And so if you zoom right in here, you can actually get an idea. And what QGIS is doing on the heat map, by the way, is as you zoom in, it also then displays more. So you'll see there's a dark area. If I zoom in on that dark area, you'll get the proximities. And this is sort of that cluster of a whole lot of them together. If you click on one, you'll see that the shift distance on the right there is 38. So basically that any boundary there would have needed to be moved by 38, in this case actually meters. And so it gives you an idea of that. And you can kind of zoom along and go check the different areas, and it's based on that. Okay, let's get into another one that's really kind of cool. So that's the shift vector heat maps. Let's talk a little bit about timestamp data. So if you know in Munsys, if you turn on Munsys lineage, it'll automatically create a SBAD table with whatever the feature is. In this case, we're looking at water pipes. AD being archive delete table, and we track that. It's just a set of triggers, and so if anybody does an insert, edit, or delete, we track what it is. And so it's also tracked when it was done with the date and the time. And so in QGIS, there's actually item 3 on here, the menu. It says view panel. So let's just go and open it up. So I could save this project, by the way, to Oracle, and all it does is save the configuration of the project, but let's discard that. And I'll speed this along. So what I'm doing here is adding the pipes, and you can see them here. So for the 2 layers, the pipes and you can see them there at the top left. So the AD pipes. So the first time I turn that on, it's going to show me any pipe that's ever been. There's no time filter or anything on it. So if I click now, it's currently just showing water pipes. So let's actually go and you can see, so on this water pipes in the archive delete table, you can see here's the lineage date. So this is what Munsys actually stores, what the date was, what the time was, who did the change, what was it, was it a deletion or an update, etc. So that's there in the Munsys lineage table. And then if we go a little further, what we want to do is turn on the changes for lineage. And so what I'll do is first just, set to temporal. So in the properties, so if you double click on that layer or you go properties on the layer, you'll see temporal panel. You can, this is dynamic. And so at this point we go in and we say, all right, let's go in, and this is in QGIS, the newer version. And we're going to say it's a single field with date and time, and we're going to include start and end, and we're going to go and set what that field is, so the lineage date. And so it's temporal. So we want to go in and set up the duration, etc. And so we can play that. So let's go and say okay to that. And so now we can turn this guy on. You'll see the little icon, by the way, next to that in there. We can turn on, there's a panel for the temporal controller. And this allows you to control that panel. So that layer is turned off at the moment, the yellow pipes up here. And we can then turn on the temporal navigation. So let's turn the layer on and then go and show it. So we turn it on. So this just shows in the first instance when you saw it all yellow like that. Let's try and see if I can get to the yellow bit. It was pretty quick, so we'll play there, right there. So it's turned on. This just means that all of these pipes have been edited at some time in their life. Okay. So what we can do is control that through the panel. So if we go onto the panel now, which has now been, it's disabled, we turn it on. It now shows you the options you've got. Okay, so now we can go in and we say, well, what's the date range? It's from this to this, and we'll actually go in and set that to that particular the range for this table here, AD table, and then we'll go and apply that. So Now we can come in, turn that layer on, and set it as well. So that's a start and end date. You see, this is the entire history from 2010 to 2023. So that's all changes ever made on this database, because they started in 2010 in this particular data set. So what you can do is hit the play button. And so now you're going to run through this thing forever. And nearly, we haven't quite finished setting it. So what we're going to do is, instead of going hour by hour, let's go maybe year by year. And then we can just see each of the years. So this is, 13 years of data editing. We can hit on loop, hit play, and then turn on that layer. So now, when we hit play here, it's going to apply to the layer. It's now going to apply this in a loop. And you can watch on the screen each year what was changed in this area. And you zoom to wherever you want. This will loop if you want, and you can zoom around and go check what happened at each of those. You can also pause it at any given state, and then you'll know. So this just gives you a really good idea of what data has changed when. And it's an example. It's temporal, could be anything. You could be getting data over IoT. You could be doing, you link it up in any which way. So pretty cool to deal with that. So we'll keep moving along. And you can do it across the board anywhere and run that. If you go in on this particular area here, we can go and I'm moving on now, but let's just show a set of data. This was fairly interesting. So now it's applying the pipes across, and you can get some context by turning on that. Basically, that web layers there allows you to do that. But let's actually go in and add a couple more things on those layers. So I'm just showing the other plugin here that we will get to right in a minute in this instance. So that's all good. We'll move along. So here's the other plugin, and that is a quick map that you can set up. So this is a thematic node markers. So one of the things is, inside of QGIS, you're going to set up or essentially theme the presentation of your data. So if we go in and we just turn on, say, water pipes, you can just drag and drop that from Oracle into your context. You're going to go in and set up some symbology and that sort of stuff. So I just want to see what was here. So I just loaded the water pipes. And what we're going to do is change junctions, hydrants, and end caps, etc., and then add some background raster to the thing. So let's take a look here. So here we are. We've got the nodes. We've got the water pipes. And when you pull something into QGIS, it just applies the default symbol, which is a red dot, which is really not that useful. Just turning off that temporal panel here quick, because we don't need, it's only applied to that on that other layer that we'd set up. So now we go to the water pipes, and this is, so if you just pull in any table, it's not going to have colors, it's not going to have line weight. You're going to have to set that up in your project. Good thing is you can save the project. If you save the project in the database, by the way, so here I'm just setting up the different colors. So we can go to, on symbols, we can categorize by node type. So this is essentially a thematic by node type, and down below, it'll have it has a little classify button, and you can set the colors and whatever. So we can classify this. So once again, it's using the same symbol. We'll come back to that. But this guy has by node type. So these are all the unique node types in this data. So pretty quick way of doing that, and we can apply it, and you'll see it on the map. And that's all great. Still not look like a real utility data set. So let's change that. So on this data set, the hydrants are this bright cyanish blue. And through QGIS, you can go in and set up your markers. So you can look at the colors, change that to say blue. You can click on the marker and choose any of these available ones and their colors and the weight and whatever. And I'm not going to go into all the details on any of the dialogues, but what we can set up then is we've set all the hydrants to just be a simple red marker. So now we go to the next one, and we can set a little transparency here and go in and change the size. And so now we're doing junctions. We're just going to turn the junctions into little small circles. So we got the dark blue are the hydrants. The junctions there, those T's are small little transparent circles. Let's go then and do, say something else. So and there's different markers. We have produced some that match the, like an SVG symbol. So these are the Munsis ones that we've produced. So here we can go in and say, okay, let's go and do the valves. So we'll click on a valve symbol so that you don't get, the ones in QGIS are fairly small. We'll probably pull out a set of Munsis markers. So you can set the size and the color, and as you're adjusting it here on the dialog, you'll see the thing changes up top. And you've applied it. Now you'll notice, once again, it's not like in Munsis, we already set the system up to rotate those. So we've captured that explicitly in the sim angle column. So you can go into QGIS and set that up. Once again, that's why it's good to save the project. And so, by the way, if you save the project in the database, it means everyone else can access it, multiple people, as opposed to if you save it on your computer, you got to ship the project to someone else, and then you get multiple copies of it. Okay. So you can then build out the map so that you get an end cap, etc. Within it. And so one of the things we're doing here is just setting up the angle. So the Munsis sim angle column is storing it in radians. So if it's a valve and you want it parallel to the line, you've got to take it the sim angle multiplied by the radians, which is 57.23, rounded up. I mean, you can. And so now you'll actually see that those there are, yeah, we're going to also do the end cap. So you should have seen there that the valves were aligned with the pipe. It'll zoom in out again. So yeah, we're just doing an end cap. End caps, you can use a simple marker and just give it a weight and a color. So you can set it to a good blue since it's water, and then also go in and set the size and then the stroke width. So that'll make it a fat line. And so you'll see it now come in short. Once again, has the rotation problem. And so you go fix that. At this time, we want it orthogonal to the line, not parallel. So there's slightly different formula. There's a couple of different ways of achieving this, by the way, the formulae. But this is, once again, inside of QGIS, you'll notice there's all sorts of things. You can add conditions and conversions and do math and stuff on an expression or whatever. No, we probably want to type that a little better. And I think it should have been 57.23 or 24, depending on how you round it. But anyway, that's okay. So you'll get the picture now. That end cap is now orthogonal. You see the valves are parallel, and you're starting to get essentially what looks sort of like a water map. And then if you save that profile, it's useful. You can, in fact, save a template as well, so that you can share it and not have to set it up how many hundreds of times. And that would be useful. The other thing to do is there are a bunch of quick maps. So that's that plugin, the quick maps. And so now we can turn on the OpenStreetMap standard drawing. Now it doesn't, it's got the roads as thin lines. So those pipes might be, on the sidewalk or under the sidewalk. So now I can set an actual area to display, and we can go now and come in and actually set up, let's just show you like a geo PDF layer and with a layer toggle, and that just shows you a couple of other useful things. You can save, I'll do it twice, there'll be a quick and dirty map. So the first one is, let's just export this one to a PDF, and then down below it'll create so there you can set your scale and there's a zoom extents, etc. And all of that, but you can create a geospatial PDF. And what we're doing here is we're setting it to the canvas extent. So in other words, where you've zoomed to on the map behind, and you hit save. And you can go in then and so just give it a file name quick, put it on the desktop, and we'll do it and put that in there. Save. Let's go and open that then. So it's exported that. We're doing the top part of this slide. So we've exported. So that's on the project menu. So here's the PDF just opened in a thing. This is a PDF reader. But if you click the layers, you'll see that your actual layers are displayed there. This is just Foxit PDF reader. It's just a free reader. And those layers there, you can toggle things on and off. So it becomes a little more useful in the PDF. So it's a vector PDF and it's got the layers that people can actually turn things on and off. So that's kind of useful. And in fact, we can do a slightly better job of that because inside of that little tool in QGIS, there's a bunch of different backdrops. So let's just look at that quickly. And you can add other stuff as well, and scale bars. We'll come to that in a minute. So let's go here to the project. You could set a print layout. See that? So we'll just do this and then we'll use the GeoPDF again a second time. So here's a print layout. So this is kind of like Paperspace in AutoCAD, and you can go in and add like the map item. So now it's rendering from your map to here. You can add a north arrow, and sorry about this, but yeah, it's a little rough, but it'll do. You get the picture. You can add a legend, would be good. Scale bar would be good. So you can pop those items there and essentially set up this this layout and then save the layout and use it again later. Let's add the legend. A couple of nice options on the legend. You see it's super long because it's got everything. Let's say we only want legend resize. You can say the properties is we can change the size so it fits, but we can also go to the item properties here and go only show items inside the linked map. In other words, on this map, we're only seeing hydrants and valves and junctions, and that's it. And as that changes, it'll dynamically go and set itself. So that's kind of useful. You can add a whole lot of just a big piece of text. You can add stuff like the coordinate system. It'll put that straight down there. And then, of course, other things like the units and the min max and all of that. A bunch of things that you can automatically go and add to your layout, dates and the like. So if we put that in, let's go in and put a piece of, so day, month, year, we just putting that down and add a piece of text, big fat label, so you can type lorem ipsum or anything else you want in there. Try to get that spelled a little more. Okay, well, never mind. So you get the picture, and you can change colors, etc. on just about anything, font size, apply it, off you go. But what you're doing is you're setting up a layout. So it's kind of a production map. This one looks terrible, but we can come in and then save that layout. You can also export this as a SVG or actually the PDF. Let's do the same thing on that PDF. In fact, before we do that, let's go in to the web quick map services and look at a couple of backdrops. So there's a Bing satellite, and there is, say, Google's satellite. You'll see it adds the layers in the legend, and you've got to turn them. It starts top down, so anything on the bottom is going to get covered by anything above it. But take a look at the map. As I toggle these on and off, it's clear that Bing and Google have different ages of, like, during construction and after construction. We'll show you again how that's useful. So let's export this to a PDF, and we'll create that geospatial PDF like before. We'll give it a name, and you've been through this, so we'll just be pretty quick. The neat part here is we can then save that and give it to someone else. So if we just go in and open that, here's that thing, and look at the layers now. So here they can toggle the street map, the Bing, or Google. And so if you go between Bing and Google, you'll see there that there's, there was under construction at different times. In fact, it was a little quick. Let me go back. Okay, here. So if we go to this guy. So in this instance, once we got into the PDF, if we turn off Street Map, this here is showing like the Google stuff, and then there was Bing right there. So yeah, I didn't show it very well, but different times. The one was a bit kind of later. Bing was actually more up to date than Google in this instance. So that's a layout. Once again, you save that layout. So here's another setup. Let's move on then. Another item. So this is if you want to use URLs inside of your QGIS map. We'll link it to Enlighten, but you could link it to anything, to photos, to other web pages. So if you want, if you had tree species and you had a Google URL and you wanted to push that out, you can do that. And so you can also add map tips inside of QGIS, and once again save that in your map setup. So so you can do all of that. So we can go in and let's just look at a few of these URLs then quickly. So let's go first with get a map on here and start adding a couple of map tips. So we're just gonna go find that quickly. Yeah, so not sure where that is. Okay, not there. Okay, back to here. Here we go. So here's the map tips. So on the display, you'll see there's HTML map tip and a little techie thing here, just playing with some stuff. Say we want to put the locality, pick a field. Actually, let's say we want the locality name. So those are within our water pipes. We have a locality name on there as an attribute. We want to get some HTML for the map tip, and let's assume I really don't know what my HTML should look like. One of the current items is ChatGPT. So we can actually go to ChatGPT. You do have to set yourself a login, but it's free and you can go in there. But you can just ask questions. So here's a little at the bottom here. You can see it playing through. It says, "Give me a." You just type in. This is AI stuff, right? So it's going to interpret what you've written and just type in a sentence. Give me the HTML code to link to and give it a website. So we start off, we just give it a plain website. So this is just the website. So that's an Enlighten website. So ChatGPT goes away and says HTML format. This is what you're going to need right here, and there it is. So it'll tell you when the user clicks on that, it's going to open that website. Just simple, right? So you can just copy that, paste it in here, and now you've already got your HTML for that. So if I go into QGIS now, there's that there. Now it doesn't look great, but it works. It takes you to this landing page for Enlighten in this case. Okay, so let's move on a little quicker. Let's go and say we also wanted to improve that and zoom to a specific. I went too quick. Yeah, let's go further. I'll just let it play. All right, so we can get a little creative with that and pretty much go in and set the code. I'm going to log in to Enlighten here just so that it's logged in, and we need that password, so we're going to stick it in. Just go find it. It's one of them long ones. And I'll paste it in here. Okay, so now we've popped right into Enlighten. There it is, and then we go to QGIS. What we've done here is we said, let's go and cut and paste the details to get to We're going to ask this here. We need the text to be a bit bigger and maybe a different color. And also add in a piece of text here. So we're just using ChatGPT just to, I don't know if you've played with it or not. It's kind of interesting. You can just say, create me code for this or do that or whatever. It's AI stuff. So now it's taking what we put in there and said, all right, well, let's just give you some fancy, a little bit more on the HTML. And so now it's given us that, and you can copy that. And so now I just change this in the display panel in the properties. And when we come in now to Enlighten, you'll see that the tooltip is now larger, but it's also associated that URL to this descriptive text. So yeah, just a quick way of doing it. And if you click on that, then it'll pop up and take it in Enlighten. But let's go a little further. Let's say we wanted to control this map to zoom to the extent. So once again, there's a little, did a bit of work here. We can get the min-max extents and just pasted it in. So now I'm going to delete that top one with the showing the pipe, but this bottom one here is doing two things, and I should pause there. In that HTML, we're using the Enlighten integration API, which says open Enlighten, but use these parameters. So on the GID of what you've selected on, you can go in and view that particular pipe in Enlighten. So this is how you can click on QGIS and have Enlighten, take a URL, have Enlighten, basically open the map and zoom to that thing. And in this case, it's a pipe. So there's a bunch of different things you can do here, and it'll just, click the tooltip in QGIS is going to say view the pipe in Enlighten. Okay, so let's delete that guy. Just have the one, apply that, say okay. Go into QGIS, highlight this, view the pipe in Enlighten. So you do need to move on to that tooltip, and obviously it's a little trickier, but there you go. Click that guy, pops right up. Opens Enlighten. If you were logged in previously, which is why we logged in previously, you can see it running the search filter in Enlighten. So the integration API is taking those parameters, saying run a search, find that, zoom to it, select it, and if I zoom out, there it is. So all of that URL is getting all of that done, and you can zip between them. Okay. We did another one, which was zoom to the extents in the URL here. And it's a little more complicated if we go to that panel. The other thing you can do is there's actually actions that you can set up. And so one of those is open to the canvas. You see that? And so let's go in and on the QGIS here, you can go in and set up, open a URL to the canvas. It's somewhat similar. You're setting a tooltip with a URL or an action, and then you can go in and you go and actually set it. And here I'm gonna jump on it, but there's options for features in Canvas, and we've put in here the min-max for it, and I'm gonna zip right along pretty quickly on that. And so it's taking the integration API of Enlighten, and it's adding a bunch of min-max extents. If you see that, zoom to the coordinates. So it's literally telling Enlighten, when I click this action, go and zoom to the extents in Enlighten that I am zoomed into in QGIS. Okay. So we can take that and apply it. So now if I'm in QGIS, I go here, I zoomed out a little bit. It says open the map in Enlighten, and you do actually have to click something, but it'll apply whatever the action panel is. So you always got to select somewhere because it gives it a zoom point. Once again, it's firing up Enlighten, and it's applied that zoom extents and it's taking you to that same spot. Okay, so fairly just a little quick way of dealing with that. So in essence, that's how to deal with those URLs, and I'm gonna I think I've got just one last thing. So here's a search to show information, a URL search to show information about a particular pipe. So let's actually change it to PVC. So you can click in QGIS, open a web page and do a Google search for PVC, for example. So once again, I'm gonna move along from there. So within AC/DC, we're going to go and look at a couple of things. Let's just move out of this. Yeah. So AC/DC is one of our products, and we have a lot of layers. And in this case, well, actually, I'm not going to go through that now, but that was loading the blank templates from AC/DC into shapefile templates into QGIS, and then you could edit in QGIS, but then take those shapefiles and validate that data against the AC/DC portal, for example. Here's another one. If we actually take this area feature, we can go in and I just changed the order, the redo order, you just drag and drop it around there, but go in here and if you show that information now, we can go on this pipe and do an action, and it's going to actually come in and show all of the attributes from that AC/DC. So basically that shapefile has been validated and come through. So here's then also, if we remember that area we're looking at, so this is the Bing versus Google. So you can see construction there, and then if you turn on the Bing one, it's more modern, more recent constructions completed. And so we're just showing that in here, and then create the GeoPDF on that. So this is a whole set of coordinates. GDA 2020 is a well, let me stop there. So GDA 2020, I'm not going to show it here. We did it in the Australian one. It's a equivalent to in the US, the epochs on state plane coordinates. So basically because of plate tectonics, the state plane or the Cartesian coordinate systems or grid coordinate systems need to get changed over time. And so that the heat shift map that we saw, we did the heat map on, that and the coordinate shifts, we're just showing kind of how we deal with those inside of QGIS has some functions for those. And so let's keep going here. This is just looking at QGIS and the 3D viewer. So if I take data that comes in a CAD file from AC/DC, and I then put that into QGIS. So for example, let's go into QGIS here. I'm going to set a 3D panel on the right. And actually you might have not seen that. So let's just do that. Yeah, I'll start it here. So it's playing here. So in this instance, I'm going to discard that, open a new project. So we're just going to pick up one where we say there's quite a few projects. You might not have as many, but let's say for that group, we've got one area within this this district. And so this is just a little set of data. It's a place called Warrnambool, but it's there's a little DEM there. So now we want to do 3D. So let's get the digital elevation model basis. And to turn that on, you can turn on the 3D panel and zoom to your layers. So we have the DEM here. It takes a little while to load, but we're going to just show water pipes that came in basically through AC/DC. So either a shapefile and validated or a CAD drawing and validated and pushed into QGIS, so loaded. So here we've got the 2D on the left, takes a while to load, and the 3D. There's actually a high, it's a 1 meter digital elevation model, so 3 feet or so, 3.3, and you can see the dark areas are low lying, and then the yellow through oranges get the higher areas. So let's turn on that and start looking at the 3D view versus the 2D view. And this is actually takes a little getting used to navigate in a 3D map as opposed to a 2D map. And so there's symbology. You can set this one's just showing the DEM with a range of values. So once again, that's just a theme. It's on raster data in this instance. It's actual point features that are created into a DEM for this. So you can use that functionality in QGIS. And then you can put the Munsys data right on top of that. So if we go in and and look at the vector data there, we can turn that on. So let's do that. So here we've zoomed in. They've got added the aerial photo as onto the DEM, and so as you zoom in here, you can kind of, so once again, we're all still 2D, and you can see the one against the other. But then you can come in and go and control which one follows which one or the other. So you can zoom in on the one and it'll track on the other side, and you can set it vice versa and or both. So if I move on the one here, it's gonna have the 3D one follow. And then if I set the 3D one to interact with the 2D here, then if I zoom in on the right hand side, it's gonna track on the left as well. So if I move that, once again, it's pretty big aerial image and DEM. So if I move this here, it's gonna park it off over there on the left, and you'll see it, you know, reloading the tiles to regen and create the picture. So there's that. Let's then look at a little more useful value. So we'll come in and turn on, you know, so the zooming around it's kind of nice because they track against each other, and then you know where you are, and that's useful. It does, you know, depending on your connection speed. This was done on not the greatest connection, but let's go here and turn on the Munsis data. And or ACDC data, it doesn't really matter, you can pull in either way. So we can go in then on this one and on this side start doing the controls to do a 3D view and tilt and rotate. It still tracks more or less on the left where that is, and then you can turn on and off your vector data. When you put vector data, it really depends on the quality and completeness of that data. Is it true 3D or is it essentially you're draping it on a DEM surface at a constant height? So those are all things that you can deal with. And I'll just turn that on, and then this is the last thing we're going to do, and then we'll be done. So the zooming around is, you know, if your speed's slow like this. So what we've done on the left, it can be a challenge. So you'll see on the left there, we just turned on the pipes, but in the 3D view, we can set that the pipes are at a -10, so they're underground basically. So you don't see them on the 3D panel because they're underground. Okay, you can change opacity for the surface, or you can go in, and if you turn the world upside down on the right here, you'll see the pipes that are on the left are actually in that area. So you can do that. So this is now taking the pipes here are just 2D, but we can drape them at a 10, in this case meters below the ground surface. We can actually drape them and see them underground. Okay, so this is sort of step one. If you don't really have 3D, but you have a DEM surface, you can do this. What you also want is if you do have, you know, real vertices, each vertex having a different elevation, then you can use the data's 3D itself, okay? And you can view it like that. So those are different ways of achieving that. Here, if you look at this whole connection point and drain and pump into the into that detention pond there, you'll see if you go underground, there they are right there. But this ability to track left and right is useful, and this is, you know, freely available, and you can have multiple people using it within your organization. Let's go and do a couple more things. I think at this point, actually, I'm going to stop and take any questions. If you have questions, just type them in to the to that area. Let's set the height +2 of the pipes and apply that. So now you're going to see those pipes above the ground at a 2 units, whatever they are. I think in this case they're actually meters, but we'll now see them above the ground. So let's see if there were any questions. All right, hopefully you can all hear me actually. I do see there's one person couldn't hear me, but I don't believe that's the case. Okay, let's see. Brett, are you on there? Can you hear me? I think you're muted.
Yep, the audio is still good on my end.
Okay, so yeah, the folks can hear me, so I think it might be on your end. Thank you. Okay, so that's the end of the webinar. Just kind of showed a bunch of different things on what's connected on the system, and just using QGIS. The last thing I can add is, so when do you use Munsys and when do you use QGIS? So you can edit stuff in Oracle in QGIS. However, and that's fine, but you're going to lose out on all of the other value add inside of Munsys. So you're not going to have a GID created, a pipe ID, or a node ID. The sequences are not going to get populated. And so when you go back to Munsys, you basically screwed up your Munsys data because it's looking for a unique ID, which is good because it maintains integrity. You're also not going to have any of the relationships between anything. So when Munsys, you do an integrity check, Munsys is actually going to check the so when you do an integrity check, Munsys is going to go in and do things like checking, snapping nodes and start points. So you can do the editing in QGIS, but you're going to end up with pretty bad data because of none of those integrity checks, none of those validations, mandatory columns are not necessarily going to get done. And if you don't know how to do the snapping, you're going to get essentially bad data. And if they're just editing attributes, so if you're just changing diameters or stuff like that, then you've got to apply the drop down. So you need that, but you can do that. What we recommend is you use QGIS for presentation, for analytics, for charting, for visualization, and for folks that don't know AutoCAD, this is a great way for them to look at and use the data on desktop and create exhibit maps, etc. There's a lot of powerful analytic functionality that you can play with. I mentioned we showed the heat maps. I've even pushed those into 3D stuff from the heat maps to kind of show, highlight the real areas and make a presentation there. So be careful on the Munsys side. If you want to add a column, don't do it through the QGIS DB manager. Do it in the Munsys management console, because then all of those relationships and tracking inside of Munsys will also be there. It'll obviously also work in Enlighten and you won't go break anything. If you need to add a lookup table or a value that's not in the lookup table, once again, do it through Munsys management console. And then you can work from there. So do we think QGIS is useful? Absolutely, a great component into the overall efforts that can be done within, using Munsys and then QGIS. It gives essentially a desktop map production tool and analytic tool. You can put charts in there. There's just a lot of great things you can do. So that's all I'm going to do at this point. So. Okay, thanks everybody, and appreciate you joining our webinar.